Okay, sweet.
All right, welcome back to the Flipping Junkie podcast. Today I've got Jaren Barnes. I'm super excited about this interview. It's been a while since I've talked to Jaren, but we've talked quite a bit in the past, so I'm super excited to catch up with everything he's doing. Welcome to the show, Jaren.
Yeah, Danny, it's awesome to be here, man.
Cool. So let me tell a little bit about Jaren. He's a real estate educator who spends the majority of his time serving the community at retipster.com. That's R-E-Tipster. I always want to put an REI, but it's retipster.com. He also runs a full-scale land flipping business, house hacks, and has interest in vacation rentals and long-term buy and hold, which I like. Jaren got his start in real estate door knocking, pre-foreclosures, also briefly worked at Bigger Pockets, and was responsible for selling 25 to 30 properties per month at Simple Wholesaling. He's interviewed hundreds of real estate and business and financial experts across multiple podcasts. So comes with a lot of experience. Looking forward to this.
Yeah, man. It's been quite the journey. And it's funny how life turns out. I never thought when I was a little kid I was going to be forging my way through a career in real estate, but here we are.
Yeah, here we are. I think last time you were on the podcast was, yeah, I mean, you were still working with Simple Wholesaling.
Yeah, I think so. I think maybe we did like a swap or something where me and Brett interviewed you. And then I think you might've just interviewed Brett. I'm not sure if I was on there or not. I could have been. It was a while back. So
no, I think you're right. And I must be remembering when you guys interviewed me because I still remember the split screen. You guys were in like your conference room kind of table or something.
Yeah.
Yeah. I still remember that vividly. But let's talk about, so especially since I haven't interviewed you on this show, start from the very beginning. I mean, what got you excited about real estate? How did you get into all this?
Yeah. So for me, I got married really, really young. So my birthday is July 5th and my anniversary is July 7th. So I got married 2 days into being 20 years old. And when I got married and found out that there is this pesky thing called bills that you have to like handle when you're married. So I had to figure out really quickly a way to make money and provide for my family, and didn't have the luxury of 4 years of going to school and college debt and all that stuff because I was married and had to step up to the plate. Before that, I wasn't even like super planning on like getting married or anything. I was actually like super involved in the nonprofit space and did some volunteer work at like a homeless shelter in Kansas and like did all this crazy stuff when I was in my late teens. But getting married lit a fire underneath me. It was like, you gotta figure some things out. So I started actually in insurance. And I was always in the back of my mind, I was like, real estate seems interesting. But I actually got my insurance license, got hired, convinced the guy that it was required to have a college degree to work there. But I called the guy up and like convinced him to hire me regardless, without a degree. And so that was fun. And I was there for like a month and a half. And then I had some buddies that bought into a guru course, and they decided that they were going to start flipping houses in the San Francisco Bay Area where I was based out of. And what convinced me to quit my job and foolishly join them was a dear friend of mine who I really respected. He told me, listen, man, if we do one deal, we can make $100,000 in one deal. And because in the Bay Area, you actually can, like wholesale fees are, or a flip is quite a lot. There's a lot of spread on those properties out there. And I was like, man, if I make $100,000 in one deal, I can do one deal in an entire year. That's fine. Let's go. So I actually did all this work to get set up at this insurance company, and then ended up like literally being like, hey, I'm going to quit and go pursue real estate. And so my boss is kind of mad, and, he's like, okay, well, go ahead and pack your stuff and leave then. Like, no, 2 weeks. And I put in a 2-week notice, but he's like, no, just go ahead and get out of here. So I left from my campus insurance job, and went door knocking that day. And they had connected with a pretty unethical, I didn't know it at the time, but a pretty unethical house flipper based in the South Bay. And I learned a ton, and I went hard, and I was, in the grind. And I actually got like 10 properties under contract in 6 months. And at the time that was really good because the market was like very different all through short sales. So like, it was the process was dependent on other people in the company that we had connected with. So we had kind of partnered with somebody who, this unethical guy who's our quote unquote real estate mentor, right? And so we were putting in the hustle for him, and I ended up not getting paid on any of those. And there was a number of other things, like his entire strategy. I hope I'm not throwing myself under the bus here because I didn't know at the time. I was green. I didn't know that this was illegal, but he would get a property tied up through a short sale, and then he would go and like mess up the property to manipulate the appraisal.
Oh, okay. Wow.
Yeah. So like straight up illegal, like completely unethical.
Yeah.
And that was like his primary business model, at least with what we were doing. So I didn't know that at the time. Obviously, once I found out kind of the stuff that was going down, I promptly left. But I had started a real estate blog that was just tracking my journey into real estate, called realestatecatalyst.org. And I made a review on Bigger Pockets, and a number of people actually, Ari Tipster, Seth, and I think even you were on the article. And from there, I kind of got on Josh and Brandon's radar because they like reached out and said, "Hey, thanks for that article. It was great, yada, yada, yada." And I found out through social media that they were coming to the Bay Area to do a presentation for Google. And so I connected them to the guys that run the Bigger Pockets meetups in the area, and kind of just got on their radar even more and just kind of build a relationship with them. And then saw Josh post an ad on social saying, "Hey, we want somebody to, help us out, blah, blah, blah." And so I reached out and I said, "Hey, I'm not trying to move to, Denver, Colorado, but I'd love to step in if you guys needed help." And so I went in because they were really bottlenecked at this time. Like they were busting at the seams in terms of growth, but there was like pretty much Brandon and Josh and then a couple of VAs. Like there was not staff at all. And so I stepped in and kind of was the quote unquote support admin at Bigger Pockets, which means I did everything that they threw at me for like 4 months until they could find somebody to replace me. And I helped transition my replacement. And, we knew going in that it was going to be temporary and all of that, but learned a ton, and that definitely boosted my resume. From there, I ended up moving to Indianapolis, Indiana, and felt like I was at a crossroads between like content marketing and blogging and all the stuff that I was kind of doing at BP and real estate. So I chose to get my real estate license and go the route of real estate, but ended up getting hired by a guy named Brett Snodgrass, who ran a company called Simple Wholesaling, to do marketing stuff for him. So I kind of always been in this bubble of content marketing, this intersection of content marketing and real estate, and learned a ton there. Have launched a podcast. Halfway through my time there, I switched to the deal side and became the disposition manager. And so I was responsible for selling our property, and we had scaled the business from like 8 to 12 deals a month to about 25 to 30 deals a month.
Nice.
So, I was very busy, needless to say. And at my time there, I actually interviewed a couple of the land guys, including Seth, and wanted to use my skill sets that I had, my skill set that I had developed as a wholesaler, on something that wouldn't be direct competition to Simple Wholesaling. So there's a lot of overlap between the land business and wholesaling houses, especially if you don't assign contracts like we did at Simple Wholesaling. And so I started my land business there, started doing deals in Southern Indiana, and then slowly transitioned into land kind of full time. And then ended up, I was in a relationship with Seth. We were in a mastermind group together, and the stars kind of aligned, and it seemed like a good fit for me to jump on board with Ari Tipster. And so that's the rest is history, as they say.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
always want to say too, that crazy tipster, he's always taking people up to the great tips. Yeah, Seth is awesome. I've known him for a long time too, and yeah, I can attest to that. He really truly cares about value, right? I mean, everything is really about providing a ton of value. So
yeah, I mean, it's ridiculous the lengths that we go to just serve people and our audience. Like it's just being around the space, there's a lot of things that we could charge for that we don't, because we want to just give people the things that they need to be successful.
Yeah. And sometimes I'm like, you guys need to charge for this, and then you won't. So I take it and then I sell it on my website. No, I'm just kidding. I don't.
Yeah, well, you'd be surprised that that does happen from time to time.
It is crazy because I did have seller lead hacks. I had the SEO training one
Yeah,
time, and it was great training. And I spent so much, I recorded for weeks putting all that stuff together. It was all the knowledge for SEO that I had. And then I started getting notices from people saying that the course is being sold on all these other websites for free. And it's like, oh man, how the heck? It's nearly impossible to shut it all down too. Now everybody's going to go search for that, right? They're going to find where they can get the anyway. But yeah, it's a shame that people are will do that kind of thing. But um, what I want to talk about as we transition the show is it's really cool how different things in your life you kind of were just open to making a transition. I don't think I hear that as much from other people that I've interviewed. It's more of like I was in this job for a long time. I got bored. I wanted to do something, have freedom, and then so I read Rich Dad Poor Dad, and things happen. And there's nothing
yeah,
wrong with that, but I really do like how you've managed to redefine, what you're doing and just exploring life, I guess, in a way, maybe is a good word for it.
yeah, and just being aggressive, I think. My wife is from Kazakhstan. She was born in Uzbekistan, and but she's Kazakh by nationality, and moved to Kazakhstan later, like in her childhood. And there's something about that immigrant hustle, man. There's something about that mindset that it rubs off on you. Hanging out with her and my in-laws, somewhere down the line, I picked up this idea that I feel like I have an obligation to the world to utilize the opportunities that I have in this amazing country, and in entrepreneurship, and in the opportunities that real estate provides us. I mean, maybe it's not real estate, maybe real estate's not your thing, but generally speaking, like when you're in a situation like we are, just by being in this nation, like we have almost a moral obligation to pursue being successful, because there are literally people that would kill, like literally they would kill to be here. I mean, I like, not metaphorically, like they would go through great lengths to get their families here, and
I
they
thought you were
do.
going to start describing how they
They're
would
like,
kill, like the
they're
methods
gonna,
of murder.
grab a knife and no, uh, no. But I mean, I don't know. Like I think a lot of people, we live kind of in a bubble, and we don't see how other people live. And my wife grew up in like legit poverty, like that her grew up in a village. Her toilet was a hole in the backyard, like legit poverty. And when you get exposed to that and kind of vicariously get to live some of that through your relationship with whoever it is, whether it's your spouse or whoever. But for me, it's been her. Like I don't know, man. It lights a fire underneath you, and you're like, man, I owe the world to grind as hard as I can, because I have the opportunity. So why not? And that's really what I think has been a major driver for me, is wanting to provide the life that I think that, not that she deserves, but that I want to give her, because I want to spoil her.
Yeah, nice. That's such a good message, though. The appreciation for what is given us is, oh, it's just so crazy how much, and we're so used to it. Well, I mean, I guess I could just speak for myself, but like I'm so used to it, it's kind of hard. Like we almost have to work to really appreciate what we've been given, and the opportunities that we've been giving. And, we can let things unfold and just see what happens, because so many opportunities open up every single day for everybody. It's just that a lot of people aren't in the position to see it, right? Sometimes I'm so busy caught up in the problems that I've got or whatever that I don't see that kind of thing. So
Yeah.
yeah, I like your message. And Brian Buffini shares the same sort of have you listened to his podcast before?
I haven't actually.
Oh man, I love it because of his accent and everything. It's just it's so fun to listen to him. If you like business, general business kind of like information, but done in a great way on a podcast like Brian Buffini, that's awesome.
Yeah, I'll have to check him out for sure.
But I think even the book he wrote even is about that, about the whole immigrant hustle,
Mentality.
kind of this whole
Hustle, yeah.
thing. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's real, man. I mean, it's I don't know, like people come here. I know Central Asian people here in Chicago. I moved from Indianapolis to Chicago the last couple of years, and I know people who came here with absolutely nothing, and within a few years they have houses and cars, and like, their family's doing well, and they're not doing like super sexy jobs. They're like driving Uber, but on top of driving for Uber, they're like, doing this side hustle and that side hustle, and just looking for any opportunity that they can get their hands on because it's here. Like we don't realize it, but there are people who live in a world where there are no jobs. Like there's like nothing you can do. I mean, I'm sure that there's always something, but it can, in some of these developing nations, man, it can get pretty gnarly to find work. And it's not that people don't want to work. Like they would, it's a privilege to work. We have such a different mentality, sometimes here in America, where people like, in the pursuit of work-life balance. And you got to be careful. I think that you need to watch that a bit. You don't want to become a workaholic or whatever, but I don't know, that people tend to get this idea that, oh man, it's Monday, I have to begrudgingly go and do my work stuff. But they don't realize that, no, like having a job and having a means to provide for your family is an absolute gift. Like, and you should be super thankful for that gift, and you should steward that gift to the best degree that you possibly can. And just hanging out with my wife, and we're approaching our 10-year anniversary. She's definitely opened my eyes to a lot of that stuff and that kind of mentality.
Cool. Yeah, that's awesome, man. And I mean, it shows all the the things that you've done shows that you've truly lived that, right? It's not just talking about it. You haven't heard it somewhere and thought it was a good idea and sharing with other people. It's sort of how you've been operating. So, man, that's awesome.
Yeah. Yeah, man.
And congratulations on coming up on 10 years. That's cool.
Yeah.
But I'm calculating how old you are, and I'm jealous now. So
I'm 30. I'm turning 30. Yep.
All right. And, but when we were talking before the show, you had mentioned about working on your land business and how, what was the phrase again that you had said, something about holding on as long as.
Yeah. So, I mean, like right now, my land business is in a very interesting place because I feel like we're about to scale. Like, I feel like I'm about to, like, I have a model now that is very scalable. And as long as we can continue to bring in more and more private money lenders, we can pretty much scale to oblivion. And I think I just held on to the pursuit of my land business and kind of limped along long enough for me to figure some competitive advantages or some leverage points or some edges are leg ups on my competition. And it's definitely paid off. I mean, it's been a while. Like, I've made money from, the first few months of the land business, but it's never been to what it is now. And I don't know. It feels like I just figured it out. Like, just it's just a really exciting thing.
So I want to find out what do you mean by holding on long enough? Like, what do you mean by that? What was it? Limping along and you kind of thought maybe it's just a side thing, I don't need to do it, I'm going to focus on this other stuff, maybe I don't really. I mean, what do you mean by holding on long enough?
Yeah, so I think that a lot of us, myself included, jump into a business of our own, or some kind of money-making pursuit, whether it's a business or some kind of investment strategy or what have you, kind of naively, thinking that, I mean, and I don't want to speak for everybody, but generally speaking, I guess I'll just speak for myself. I was naive when it came to the pursuit of my land business and type of, just real estate investing in general. I was coming off of, Simple Wholesaling, where Brett had worked for 10 years to get to by himself as a one-man show. Nobody had heard his name. To get to the point where he could bring on a team and brand Simple Wholesaling and do all that. And he had worked up a lot of working capital over the years. And, in terms of any kind of marketing or any kind of thing within reason, I pretty much had an endless budget to spend on things that may turn an ROI, right? Even if it didn't pan out, like if the the risk was worth the pursuit, right? Like I could pursue it. Um, and that's a very different situation than when you start your own business. And when I first started, I just made a ton of mistakes thinking that I was way bigger than I was. And there's also a second side to business management that has nothing to do with the activity to generate revenue. It has all to do with like managing money. And I had no idea. Profit First, by the way, is a book by Mike Michalowicz. If you guys have
Love
not
it.
checked it out, I would highlight that book. Changed my life. But that's the second side to the coin of like, oh, you actually have to, just because there's money in the bank account doesn't mean like you can spend it. Like a lot of the times it's already spent on taxes or the next direct mail campaign or whatever. And so there was just a lot of, spending money, hiring people that I shouldn't have hired prematurely, and just making a ton of mistakes along the way. But I stuck to the process, kept doing deals, kept making mistakes, and probably more dense than the majority of your listeners out there. But it took me a good solid, I don't know, probably 2.5, 3 years to really get my handle on ways that I could do the land business that was very 80-20, very leveraged, and just a way where I can scale. And so I handle coaching clients and stuff at RE Tipster. We bring on land coaching clients and stuff. And one of the things that I teach there is to kind of addressing this naivety, right? I teach them something that I coined the 24-month rule. And the 24-month rule essentially is that stick to your business pursuit for at least 2 years before you throw in the towel or come to the conclusion that it doesn't work. Because you do your first direct mail campaign and you don't get deals, like that it's unrealistic for you to come to a conclusion that says, oh, direct mail doesn't work, or this strategy doesn't work, this real estate thing's a bunch of nonsense. Direct mail is like fishing. Some days you go fishing, you don't catch anything. Some days you go and have a great fit, but there's an entire industry based on fishing, right? Like it doesn't mean that fishing doesn't work just because you have a bad day or a bad month. So, there's a lot there, but a lot of people hear success stories from a stage or from a video online that is 100% an outlier, and it's super inspirational. My back was against the wall and I took out my credit card and I spent my last $100, or I went into debt and I bought this thing, or I did this and all of a sudden it worked and I became a millionaire overnight, right? Like that's super inspirational.
Yeah, you just got me inspired just from saying that. And I was like, even though I know it's
yeah, and it's
like how we're wired to, yeah,
but it does, it's an outlier, and you can't base a system or you can't base a decision on outliers. The majority of people that I know who are full-time into their thing now, whether it's real estate or Seth at RE Tipster or what have you, most of them had a period of their life where they did their full-time job and did their full-time side hustle for like about 2 years. Like sometimes it's 12 months, sometimes it's a year and a half. But for Seth, I think it was 18 months. He was grinding at RE Tipster before he saw any kind of like traction or any kind of thing that was like, okay, this is actually going to turn into something. But then I think it was after, I'm probably butchering it, but I think after the 18-month mark, he started making money somehow. And then within 6 months, he was able to quit his job and do RE Tipster full time. I think that's how his story went. And
wow, yeah, you're right. And when we hear that though, even if we hear it in that way, right, he grinded for that long. And then that part, like, I don't know, my mind at least wants to just kind of push that aside and say, well, yeah, okay, it took a little bit of time, but then he hit that breaking point. And then when we try to do it, you feel like that first launch or that first thing is going to do that for you, or that first marketing campaign, and it doesn't happen. And I think it is the people that still keep going, right, and don't dramatically change what they're doing, but tweak and just
totally
stick with something, right?
Yeah, and putting the blinders on too. Like I could have easily, jumped into a bunch of different other real estate strategies, but I had built a foundation and had built traction in the land thing. So, I've just stayed the course and I've held on. And now, there's a handful of things that we do that's not a lot of other people do, and it gives us a competitive advantage. And yeah, it's exciting. I think that we're in a position where we could really scale. So that's the objective. See how far we can take it.
Well, and I know people out there are like, well, what are those things? Like, I want to know what those things are. Maybe if you're willing to share,
$9.99. No. No, just kidding.
if you're willing to share one of those things in a little bit, but I
mean,
still want to stick with this though, because I think this is a really big, part. And I think, I'd love for it to still be the focus of the show, because I think where a lot of people drop out, where a lot of people get stuck. And I know I did. I felt stuck for years. I mean, I got the traction, started making money. It took me 2 to 3 years to quit my job because I didn't feel like confident that I would still be able to support my family and all that kind of stuff. And then it took another 5 years at least before we brought on help and hired people. And it was, all of those years of having these ideas that were just not stable enough, or it's all on me. And if I bring somebody else on, it's even more pressure because I have more responsibility for someone else and their family. And it's a difficult thing. So can you share a little bit more about some of those, early mistakes of, even hiring the wrong people, or maybe bringing them on the wrong time, and what you would do if you were to do it over again?
Yeah, I mean, really the bottom line, I think it boils down to having a system or a grid of managing money, like Profit First. So I know I gave kind of a little note at the end of the page there about Profit First, but that book really did change my life, because all of a sudden I understood accounting in a way that my brain worked. Like, most accounting doesn't make sense. And I mean, sure, maybe it makes sense to accountants or whatever, but it's accounting money that's already been spent. It's looking at things from a past perspective. Whereas Profit First looks at it as a real life dollars in the bank perspective, and moving forward, what money you're going to need in order to sustain your business and to grow and be healthy. I mean, it's essentially budgeting without budgeting, because budgeting to me, and I guess in terms of like the Dave Ramsey world, I'm very much a free spirit, and a budget feels like a straitjacket. I absolutely hate the idea of budgeting. I agree with you. But I mean, the Profit First, it gives you a perspective to understand, okay, there are several buckets, and they actually have you set up bank accounts that represent each bucket of things that you need in your business. Like, most real estate investors, they need a direct mail bucket, or operation expense, an OPEX bucket. Profit First also says that the goal of a business is to be profitable from day one, which to a lot of people is controversial. But you can, by making a decision, be profitable from day one by setting aside money in a bucket called profit, and then doing that first, and then doing taxes next, and then running your business off of whatever is left, and growing as you need to grow, and staying, not acting like you're bigger than your britches, Mm-hmm. So that was probably the biggest issue, was that I just was like, oh, there's, I made $40,000 on this deal, or I made, this month I've made a huge, like, there's so much money in my account right now. Let's just like go gangbusters and grow and hire this person, do this and do that. Or let's do a super aggressive direct mail campaign and all this stuff. And that was the main issues. I just didn't have a paradigm. I didn't have a framework or a mindset related to how business finance works. And the fact that you have to allocate funds for certain functions, like taxes. Taxes will get you.
Mm-hmm. So no, that is a huge point. And I like in that book what he talks about, the typical way everybody operates as human beings is the money's there, we're going to spend it.
Yeah.
Right. And it's true, whenever the money gets, to a point where, and I think about even when I grew the software company from, just me to like 19 people relatively quickly, and how it was kind of a mess because it wasn't, planned very well. I was just spending what was there and saying, well, that's going to multiply, that's going to compound it, that's going to do all this stuff, but it wasn't thought out. It wasn't good. And at the end of the day, thinking, man, like, where did all that money go? And the Profit First, he says he had that conversation with somebody at one of the conferences or something. And she said, well, I'm not really like what you're talking about because my company's pretty profitable. And he says, well, how much profit did you make? And she said something, and he goes, okay, and so that's in your pocket? And she said, no, I put it back in the company. He said, well, it's not profit then.
Right.
Right. It's not profit because you didn't take it. It's not yours. It's in the company, and you're going to spend it.
Right. And I would justify, I think maybe coming from spending a large portion of my life in the Bay Area, just maybe through osmosis or something, just by being in the environment, somewhere down the line, I got this idea in my head that the objective of a business is to grow, is to scale, and not necessarily to make money. Like being profitable was an afterthought to growth. And I think that might have just been a personal, kind of riding the coattails of the tech industry, because that in the startup world, that's very much how it is. But like, it's only that way in the startup world. Like, it's more traditional businesses. They are like, they understand that the goal of a company and a business is to make money. So like, it's like, oh, it's kind of a duh, but that's just kind of my own process and what I had to realize. And so, to bring this home a little bit, kind of, we're talking more at a high level, just getting very practical. Like, if you're starting a real estate pursuit on this, a lot of people that come to us and, we have a land investing masterclass where that kind of walks through. It's a course that walks through how to get started in the land business. And then we also have coaching, and kind of in both situations, people come to me or I'll see forum posts or whatever that, say, oh, what kind of software do I need? How should I structure my LLC? What should I do this? Should I do that? And it's like, dude, right now, you're just trying to get to proof of concept. Like, you don't need any of that. Like, unless you have amazing assets, and obviously talk to the powers that be, your attorney, CPA, and all of that to, this is not legal or financial advice, but typically, if you're just kind of a run-of-the-mill person, when you're starting off, you don't need an LLC. Like, you can just do a deal in your personal name and get to proof of concept, get money in the bank, like, oh, okay, this works. And then build from there. Like, I tell a lot of our coaching clients, direct mail is the bread and butter of how you get deals in the land business. I know in houses and stuff, a lot of direct mail is becoming more and more dried up or more expensive or whatever, but that's still very much the textbook, like, way to get deals in land. And so I'll tell them, hey, just do one campaign and work that campaign until fruition, until you get the bulk of those properties sold and you have money in the bank. And then once you have money in the bank, then plan your next campaign, like, figure things out, see how much money you've made, let the dust settle, and then move on. You don't have to commit to, like, I'm all in, I've burned the boats, like, you don't have to do that. It's like, you just take it one step at a time, take it slowly, and don't bite off more than you can chew, and allow your actions to be small enough where you can recover from any damages from mistakes you make, because you're going to make mistakes. It's inevitable when you're starting off. So, you do not have to commit to doing tons of mail every month. You do not have to commit to a huge overhead. You do not have to commit to software. Right now, like I said earlier, I'm in the process of pretty much scaling my land business, and I'm running everything off of a spreadsheet. Like, I'm probably going to switch to a CRM system soon, especially with like automated follow-up and stuff. But you don't need anything fancy. Like, I use Google Sheets. Like, that's my CRM system.
Well, that's why you got to come over to Forefront.
Yeah.
CRM plug.
Hey, yeah, sounds good, man.
But yeah, and I'd love to give you guys a demo on that too. So we'll have to get that set up. But you talked about people burning the boats and all that kind of stuff and being gung ho. And I'm sorry, but anytime I've ever heard anybody say that, I hear from them while they're saying that and they're doing something. But week 2, a month later, they're gone. and never hear from them again, because they burn the boats. Like, you didn't have yourself any out at all. I know there's risk that has to be taken. And one example is a friend of mine, actually, that had sold a business when he got into this business. So he had a ton of money, millions of dollars. And I think he went out and said, I'm doing like a $200,000 or something mail campaign right out of the gate.
Hmm.
And it's like, well, that doesn't sound good, right? There's no data. And you know, it's not just something to get calls coming in. How are you handling those? And how are you going to handle that volume of calls?
Yeah.
And really be able to set up appointments quickly. What are you going to do? Like,
Well, yeah. And even scrubbing, like, I mean, man, that was a lot of the mistakes that I make in the beginning is I'd be like, hi, let's just get mail out. It's time to get mail out. And I would just like slap together some super messy campaign. And we do something in land called blind offer direct mail campaign. So like again, there are some outliers, but kind of the go-to strategy is to actually send a purchase agreement in the mail as your direct mail piece. So you have to do a lot of analysis on the front end to come up with your offer. And so I would just like slap something together, and then I would waste, or I'd have like my spreadsheet would have all the mistakes, like everything would be all jumbled together. Like I'd have different addresses for different properties. And I just, because I was in a hurry and I was just trying to, move too quickly. I'd make a lot of those kind of mistakes. So, as you're talking, Danny, I'm reading a book right now called Atomic Habits.
mm-hmm.
And the biggest takeaway in that book so far is he said your success rises and falls to the level of your systems. And I think that's the biggest key on what we're talking about is like, if you have the long-term approach to whatever business pursuit you're pursuing, whether it's land or houses or whatever, if you go into it like, okay, I'm going to build a system and I'm going to continue to build this system until it's so fine-tuned that it's going to continue to work and make money for me until kingdom come, then that is going to get you a lot closer to success than just trying to be like, all right, I'm just going to like, like, I guess like kind of the farmer versus hunter mentality. I'm going to go slay the dragon and bring it home, like
feast and famine.
Yeah, it's not sustainable. And you can do it, and there's people that do, but it's behind closed doors, they are really stressed out. And a lot of the times, just because they're doing a big deal count, like you go to your local real estate investor meetup, and the guy's like, yeah, I'm doing like 50 deals, 100. That does not mean much. They could be making zero, like they could be making negative
I've seen
dollars.
financials of some companies that do that. And yeah, they're making less than they were when they were by themselves doing everything.
Yeah.
Which is a shame because that's not sustainable either. That's no fun either.
No, and they're stressed out to the max, man. Like it's
and the thing is the systems, like you said, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it's all. I think that if we were to, just be honest, the key to having any business work is having it be a system and not basing it on outliers, because there's tons of outliers. There's always going to be, some guy that won the lottery, but like that doesn't mean you should base your decisions in your life on you winning the lottery. It's very unlikely that's going to happen.
Well, and then determining what exactly you want your life to look like, right? Like Vivid Vision kind of stuff, which is another great book, to really know what you're aiming for, right? Because, if you're following people that are setting up in multiple markets and you're just doing that because you think, oh, tons of money and I can figure out what I want by then because I'll have a ton of money. Well, guess what? You're going to have to climb a huge hill that's going to be very painful. To get to that point. And you have to really know why you're doing it, because otherwise you could be killing yourself and look back and say, what the hell was I even doing?
Yeah, 100%.
Okay, we're going to have to end the show pretty soon here, but I know people are saying you talked about some things that your business was, and I don't know, and if you're not, that's
fine. I'm totally down to share it. The reason why I didn't dive into more details on it is because it's very land specific. So, I don't know if it's going to be that relevant to the audience, but like, I wrote a blog post.
One tip there, yeah.
Yes. So I share all these things at RA Tipster, like for free. Like I write blog posts about these things, but I'll give you two. So like the first one is I use land specialized real estate agents to sell my properties. So I outsource dispositions, which is the biggest bottleneck in the land business. It's reversed to wholesaling. So like it's easy to get deals in land. It's harder to sell deals. In wholesaling, it's harder to get deals, easier to sell them if you have like investors lined up and all of that, or like you're networked well. Nice. So using land specialized real estate agents and learning how to vet agents, because everybody will tell you that they're land specialized and they're not. That is a big leverage point for sure. Because now, not only when I'm selling property, but when I'm buying property, I'll send out the property details to my agent in the area and be like, hey, what do you think about this? And how much can we sell it for? And, I might think based on my limited data that I have through Zillow or whatever, because I do, out of state investing, they'll be able to really know it, quantifiably, like we can list it for this, sell it for this within this time frame. And that's just been huge. So, again, I don't know how relevant that would be for other types of real estate, but for land, that's been a game changer, because they help not only on the disposition side, but also on the underwriting side. When you're buying, they help me avoid buying bad deals as much as they help me sell good deals. The second one is leveraging other people's money. I mean, a lot of people will talk about OPM and all that, but the way that I'm doing my business now, I'm kind of exclusive to a private money lender, state by state. So like I have one investor for, Colorado, one investor for Florida, and et cetera, et cetera. And if they want to be exclusive in 2 states, I'll reserve it for them, but they will put up the money for direct mail and cover acquisition and closing costs. And then I just handle pretty much my operation cost. And then I facilitate the deal. So they are putting up the money, and then we're doing a 50-50 split. And that is a big deal, because now all of a sudden I have, even though it's, I'm making 50% of the profit, I have almost like unlimited money, because it's
well, the risk got transferred.
Yeah, the risk got transferred. And then and it works for them too, because obviously they have to make a bet on my competency, right? And all of that. But once that trust is there, they just literally transfer funds, and then like 3 to 6 months later, they collect a big check, right?
Beautiful. Yeah, I like that.
And so it's a great win-win, but it makes it so that, like, I mean, it's hard not to find money when you're like, yeah, I'll give you 50%. Like,
yeah.
Just,
that's how I got started in the house business. So we were 50% of the profits from the deals.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's hard not to, and when you have that, it's like, okay, well, all of a sudden, hypothetically, if you just got enough investors, you could just do every state and, go hard.
Yeah, talking about expanding big time. I wouldn't want that, honestly.
Oh, I'm not suggesting I'm going to all 50 states at all. I hope I was joking there.
Okay. Well, cool. Jaren, this has been great to catch up with you, and I definitely want to keep in touch a lot more often. And if anybody out there listening wants to get a hold of you, what's the best way for them to contact you?
Yeah, probably through RA Tipster. I mean, so we have a public forum. So ratipster.com/forum. You could send me an email at Jaren@ratipster.com. But yeah, if you connect with me on the forum, just mention me. I'll come say hello. It's all free. So
awesome. Yeah, everybody check that out. Those guys are great, and everything that they do is awesome. So definitely worth a look there and a joining of that forum. So awesome.
Yeah, man, it was a pleasure being here. Thank you so much for the invite. I had fun.
Yeah, cool. All right, we'll keep in touch. I'll talk to you soon.